All right, welcome everybody. This is Panfurware LLC. Let that sink in with Alex Arena.
Hello, hello.
Okay. Welcome everybody. Again, this is Panfurware LLC. Let that sink in. My name is Eric Ziegler. I am a sync licensing agent for Panfurware LLC. I am basically taking the library of songs that we have with all our wonderful, amazing artists, and I am pitching those songs to any briefs that we get. So if somebody is calling for 1990s R&B, I look and I pick something out of our library and I submit it to them. If it's what they need, we go forward from there. Anthony, if you don't mind giving a brief intro on your end.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's Anthony Ferrier here, owner of Panfurware LLC. We pivoted our IT consulting company to music publishing, and we are having fun helping artists get things in place and helping with their publishing, their paperwork, and things of that sort, and just collaborating, having fun. Just it's a super virtual party going on over here at Panfurware LLC.
Thanks for that, Anthony. So now we're gonna go to our guest of the afternoon, the evening. I guess I'm West Coast, so it's afternoon, more afternoon here than evening. Alex, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. If you wouldn't mind, actually, it sounds like there's a little bit of background noise. If you wouldn't mind muting between the questions, and just to make sure everything's nice and clear. So let's go ahead and get an intro into you. Give us a brief intro into what you are all about, and then we'll kind of dive deeper with some questions.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a singer-songwriter. I've been composing since 2013, but I've been singing all my life.
Next stop.
I am actually going to get off at this next stop so you guys can hear me more. But I love pop and rock the most. But what got me into writing for film is that I got inspired actually by anime first, and I thought, oh my gosh, like these songs really, really makes like a huge impact on these films, like not just for anime, but just for film in general. Like I think that music leaves a memory. Like it leaves a memory and emotions that comes with the memory. Especially, it moves people in a way that complements really well with the film. So, I guess a little bit about me is that, like, I always was musical growing up, and it was my biggest passion for sure. I play piano and I play acoustic guitar, but I use it mainly for composing reasons because I didn't formally take any lessons because I was self-taught. And yeah, that's about me.
Thank you for that. That's a really good overview, and there's a lot of points in there that I want to get into more in depth. I definitely want to talk about the anime thing at some point. I'm a big anime nerd, but I do want to start off with the fact that you're self-taught. Was there any talk to us more a little bit about that, a little bit about what it's like, writing music, performing while being self-taught, and why you chose to kind of go that route as opposed to the traditional route of getting a teacher and going through formal training.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of a weird process for me because I love the fact that like I hear a certain melody in my head, or like when you just, I don't know if you get this too, but when you're playing a certain melody on piano or learning guitar, it just comes to you. Like at first, because I was exposed to piano first, I got inspired by my grandpa, so he taught me just a tiny bit of like how the notes can connect on the keyboard because he is also self-taught. So I guess like for me, instead of going the formal route of of learning properly, I would say, is because I would only use it for like composition wise instead of like learning how to be a session musician. I know it would have been like a lot easier and I would have learned the theory and all that, but for me it just comes like it almost comes naturally when I learn and when I compose, and that's kind of why I stuck to that route. For me, it was like the best way to describe it is like your love for anything, right? Like how you connect with it easily, how you find it like naturally to play. That's why I learned it like my own way because I found that when I was being taught how to do it, like I would often mess up, or I guess I would just I don't know. It was quite an odd experience. Like I don't know. I think it was just that I would mess up a lot if I was self-taught, or I just um, would find it much easier to do it my own way, and that's kind of why I did it self-taught instead of like formal lessons.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely understand that because you know, it's kind of because it's kind of interesting because I was somebody who was uh kind of self-taught. I joined orchestra, I was in choir, I took music theory lessons, you know, all through school. I was self-taught, but when it came to composing for, you know, like being in a hard rock band because I did that for a while too. That was almost, you know, that was, I don't want to say improvisational, but that was a lot of my I didn't, that was the one thing I didn't go to school for, was like how to write a good rock song, how to
Mm.
yeah, like I could do theory, music theory in my sleep, right? But I can't. But there's you're not going to go to school and for saying how to write a good rock song, and I think there's
Yeah.
and I think there's a lot that are like that. I've always viewed it as music theory is another good tool that you can have in your tool belt, but it isn't absolutely necessary to be. It doesn't
Oh yeah.
make or break you as a good writer. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's something that you kind of connect to, you know? Like it's something that, for example, writing lyrics, it's something that you don't just do it to rhyme and to get famous kind of thing. It's more like how you connect with the words, how you and then make it rhyme somehow. But like even then, it doesn't have to be like exactly rhyming. It's just how you feel with it. I kind of connect the same way with guitar and piano, and in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and with guitar and piano. So, just for clarification, did you do guitar first and then piano, or did you do piano and then guitar?
Oh, piano and then guitar.
How interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people start with guitar. A lot of people start with guitar and they pick up piano at some point during the way. That's kind of how I did it. But because a lot of people see the guitar and they're like, "Oh, I want to play that," and then they grab it, and then along the way, people also realize they make that like bridge connection where, you know, there is this differential between piano and guitar. Piano can learning the piano can actually help your guitar skills. Like
Oh, that's cool.
it forces you to think a different way and approach the instrument a different way. Did you find that to be the case when you kind of
Oh, yeah.
went from one to the other?
Yeah, definitely. Because like I learned, it's kind of because like I go intertwining with them. Like when I can't compose on guitar, I compose on piano because I know like a lot more chords on piano that I can play and that I cannot play on guitar. Like for example, like uh like the sharps or the flats and then some half chords and stuff like that. So the stuff that I wouldn't really realize that I did not know on guitar, those ones I would play on a keyboard for composition, and it would work out really well because I would make my own arpeggiator, and then I would like just make up random kind of melodies with those chords on the spot. And then for guitar, it's more like rhythm guitar that I know. So it's like basic strumming, basic chords, and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, and you say you you make your own arpeggiator? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm saying that word correctly. But it's like,
Arpeggiator? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
yeah, like when you make like your own pattern with the chord. So let's say you're making a pattern with the A chord, like A major,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be like one, two, and three notes that you're using, and then you can make it into any patterns. For example, just like one example, that's what I would basically do. And I don't know if I was terming it correctly, but that's usually what I would do. There would be certain notes that I wouldn't know how to play in guitar, so I would just like rely on keyboard for that, and then I just use like the MIDI, and then I use different kind of synths. And since I couldn't do any like strings because I don't know how to play strings at the moment. That's when I would rely on like Logic or Reason or anything else that I'm using. But now I've actually switched over to a Mac. I've been using PC, but I switched over to Mac. And the Logic I find is like really really cool because it has like a lot more sound libraries, and it's really easy to use as well. So yeah, that's sorry, long-winded explanation. But
No,
yeah,
you're
that's
good.
basically what I'm.
No, you're good. It's I love Logic. Like I've only recently started getting into using like Logic Pro, like getting into it more heavily lately, and yeah, no, I definitely enjoy it. It's one of my favorites. I mean, a lot of people are either Team Pro Tools or they're Team Logic. I respect Pro Tools, but Logic, it's so intuitive. The user interface is so much fun, and when you have, I think there is something to be said that when you make the user interface, and you make something easier to accessible for everybody, then that's something that person doesn't have to worry about. Now they can just create. They don't have to worry about like having to figure out too much. They can just get right to creating, and I think there is something to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that like also it depends like what you're kind of used to or what you feel more comfortable with. Like just like
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, oh, and before I forget, I did want to ask you a quick question about the arpeggiations. Did you do you usually do uh, uh, like traditional arpeggiating, like traditional chords, or are you getting with arpeggiations going into like seventh, ninth, 13th? Like, are you starting to get into like more jazz chord arpeggiations, or are you sticking to more of the classical? Alex, did I lose you there? I think I may have lost you. Anthony, are you still there?
oh
Yes,
oh
you're back. He's
sorry,
back.
did I cut out by
No,
accident?
it's you're coming through, but you're muted. It says you're muted,
Oh
but
no.
you're coming through. Can you mute and
Oh
unmute for me?
okay. Okay, now is it better?
Yeah, that should be good. Yeah, I don't know if you heard my question. I was asking about yeah, do you use a jet when you're arpeggiating chords? Are you using like like a G major 13th, flat 13th, or are you sticking to like a regular like G major and then you're just flipping the bass around and whatnot? Like how do you approach arpeggiations? Are you using more jazz or are you using more classical uh,
Oh,
chord stylings?
I think I use a mixture of both depending on the song, what the song is beginning to sound like. Because I remember at one point I was like using sevenths or fifth. I think it was like just something that is beyond the basic chord. Um, so it would be like I think one note beside or a few notes after, if that makes sense. Um, but yeah, I think I use like one of the other. It just all depends on like what the meaning of the song would be. And for example, if it was like a Fly Me to the Moon kind of song that I was aiming towards doing, then it would probably be like towards those kind of chords that were kind of jazzy. But yeah, other than that, that's basically how I would do it. I would just do it based on how I think the sound is calling to sound like. and how I feel like, oh, this would sound good for this next song and stuff like that. And like I feel that like it's fun because like right away I can think of the lyrics or the melody that comes with it. Maybe it's because I've been doing it for so long that it's really cool because it just automatically pops up in my head and then I record it because if I don't record it, I will forget it right away. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, no, yeah, that's some really good insight into that. I do want to get to one point in particular, kind of going down my list here. I do want to touch on your influences. Who would you say that your influences are, musically? Not only like who do you listen to, but that and or who influences you as a writer.
I would actually say the like the ones who started off as a songwriter for other artists and then grew to be their own artists. So one of the people I can think of from the top of my head is like um people like Sia, Katy Perry. Um, there's this girl who wrote this. I can't remember her name right now, but like mainly I realized too that they were mainly pop artists, and specifically the pop artists that have like really powerful vocals, um, and the ones that are always sending positive energy out to other people, and even if they're not, they're being real with themselves and they're being real with other people, and they're not trying to hide anything. They're just saying like, hey, don't be afraid to be who you are. So those are the kind of people that I look up to, when it comes to just music in general, not even just writing, but like those are the people that inspire me. Those kind of writers who turn out to be artists, they inspired me the most. And then growing up, I'd say Hilary Duff and Cascada because I loved their music a lot. Like they were really like heavy pop and heavy on kind of dance EDM ish for Cascada side, that I used to listen to. So, oh, and there was much music. I'm not sure if you guys still remember that, but like it's the top 40s
Oh yeah.
when they used to play like pop and like rock. Yeah, I always grew up on that, and it was so much fun just listening and singing on the TV, singing with them on their TV.
Wow. Yeah, and so you did touch on something interesting. That it what your influences isn't necessarily from like the musicality of the artist. It's also from the energy that they're giving off. So like it seems like your influences, yeah, that person is a fantastic singer, they're a fantastic songwriter, but they also have a vibe to them. They also give off a good energy. They also have really good interactions with their fans, and they and I think that's something very important to touch on as well, because that's something that not a lot of artists, when talking about their influences, really touch upon. Is how does their influential artist interact with their fans? What kind of vibe did they give off? And I think that's something very important, because that's going to also have an effect on you as an artist yourself, and what kind of vibe you're going to be giving off. And that can even go into your target demographics. What kind of target demographics are you going to be appealing to, based upon what kind of vibe you're giving off, which is based upon the kind of the vibe and energy that your influences were giving off.
Oh, I agree 100% because the thing is like for me, I don't write or sing just because I want to catch popularity or fame. And I admire all the people who do the same thing because they just sing from the heart or they just write based on how they're feeling, and even if not, like they're just being overall creative in themselves. Because what spoke out to me the most is like, um, it's the fact that like people can connect to you on so many levels, but with music and the songs that you write, I find that you attract your own kind of crowd too by that because naturally it'll come that like people can relate to what you're singing about. People can relate to the kind of vibe that you give off, because even for sad songs there are certain, like, it's so relatable, and everybody's been there through those breakups, through those hard times, but everybody's still been there for the happy times too, and sometimes we need that kind of break. So I admire the people who really are authentic, like show their authentic self, and are not afraid to show it. And that's the kind of person I want to be too. Well, I am showing it. So, but yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's you know it's I think it's being able to connect with your fans, obviously, in a general broad sense of just saying that out loud. Yeah, sure, everybody knows that, but it's more than just surface level. That it's being able to connect to fans, being able to have a concept, have an idea, and portrayed in your songwriting, in your storytelling, that they can identify with, that will move them, that will make their heart leap out of their chest, that will make their emotions surge, burst at the seams, because and even to like break it, I don't always like to do it, but even to put it down to like a pure just business level, things that are driven by emotion, sell. And so if you want more streams, if you want more merchandise sales, you want more ticket sales, emotional driven content will sell. But I mean, in general, it's good to have that anyways, because you want to help people. You want to be able to have, because people will, they will no longer say, I feel alone, I feel like nobody else can relate to what I'm going through. They feel like they feel like somebody else knows what they're going through, and therefore, maybe if they're going through something, exceptionally bad, that now they feel like they have the strength to carry on through it, and to keep doing it because of what the messages that are portrayed in the songs.
I agree, because I remember, and this brings me back because um, I was in a rocky kind of situation with a guy, and I was listening to Sasha Sloan's music at the time, and she was one of my biggest influences because all of her songs, like, she's the one person that I was able to connect with because of the fact that every single line from her songs, like for example, Runaway, um, I can connect to very, very well at the time. And it, like you said, it did not make me feel alone for once. And I felt like even though I may have felt alone in this kind of feeling of like suffering, I wasn't completely alone, and things didn't have to end that way. And it kind of it kind of gave me back my power in a sense by listening to artists, different kind of artists that helped me through even those tough situations, because they may not know it at the time, or maybe they do know, but their words can impact so heavily on a person, even when they're not talking to you, just saying, they're still relaying that kind of message to the crowd, to their audience, and those people can, it may even save them, or it could save me. I was going through something really difficult, and at the time I made a song. It was about suicide, and the song that I wrote was actually called Stay, and it was by my old band called Chromatic Sea. And it was basically telling people not to give up and to stay, don't let go, that kind of thing. But it was one of my strongest and personal songs because I felt very touched when people reached out to me saying, like, hey, you know, um, I really connect with this song, and thank you for inspiring me for not giving up and stuff like that. So yeah, I agree. I agree 100% that you can connect with your audience, and you can connect with the people who you write songs with or you write songs to. and you share your songs with. So I agree.
Yeah, yeah, and like the thing is, people often think, artists, in regards to, artists have a lot of power. Artists have a lot of power, a lot of influence. And the bigger you are, the more power and the more influence you have. And that can be used, for, and kind of a, disadvantage to the advantage of having that is that you need to start being very, very, very cognizant of what you say as you get bigger and bigger, because every little thing you say is going to have a bigger, echo and ripple, so to speak. But a lot of things, or a lot of people often relate to the artist and the fan, but people don't always think about the artist and the aspiring artist. People,
Yeah,
which has a very similar relationship, because I think every aspiring artist is gonna still be a fan, nonetheless. They're still, but not every fan's gonna be the aspiring artist, is gonna grow up. And I think if you are both a fan and you're an aspiring musician, you're gonna take those words, to heart, like by exponentially, by two, um just because it's not just speaking to you as a fan, it's speaking to you as an artist. It's giving you an idea of possibility. It's showing you potential of, what could be you.
I totally agree. That's actually a very interesting perspective because I never thought of it that way. And it's actually so true. I get, especially for being a lyricist myself, like I tend to notice lyrics more, but also the music 100%. Like, but it is true that like I tend to like notice other artists, I guess, more in the sense that like I appreciate what they write about and I appreciate who they represent as a person, not even just an artist. Or I guess they can still like have their separate identity still, but yeah, I agree. Like it's so cool that like you can just have that kind of distinction because you're more aware of like the process, or you can connect more because you are an artist yourself and you're doing the same things, but you're also kind of vibing with um, whatever their influence is, like whatever they're giving off and the message that they're sending out. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, yeah, and the whole philosophy of the responsibility of the musician, of especially the major musicians, the level of responsibility they have, and the good and the bad that can go with that. It's something that we could talk about for days, because that's a huge concept. There's a whole, like, there's a reason that there are like, studies done on it from the psychological and the sociological perspective of of the of the influence of, celebrities, and that includes, musicians, big time musicians. But then there's also, even indie musicians, even local, your local, that's the band that's celebrities in a small town. They they even have influences as well. So it's, having the attention of a group of people, and, having their devotion more. Moreover, there's a lot to unpack with that. Um,
For
so,
sure.
like, and that's something that we could probably spend this entire discussion on, and just the psychological and sociological impacts of 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 artists,
Oh my
to
gosh, yeah.
fans. But we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. We're not gonna, another time maybe. I might do an entire room just for that, and get a whole bunch of, local musicians and indie artists, get a whole bunch of indie artists and get some input on that, maybe.
Yeah, that would be
But
fun.
but I do want to kind of move on, and ask you, kind of going off of that a little bit. I want to know, like, when it comes to performing or writing, actually, this could be either way. How do you handle stress? How do you how do you handle stress, or how do you handle um, getting into a creative rut when you're writing music?
Um, so for me, I just like I take a break and I kind of get in the mood by listening to people who inspire me a lot because I think that when I spend too much time and I get those kind of burnouts, I just I lose the mood entirely. So I have to kind of take a break, step back a little bit, and then just like let it flow, like let things happen naturally, and then get back into it. For performance wise, I actually had terrible stage fright. So what I would do is just like go there more often to the open mics. And whenever I feel ready, I would just like kind of try to perform despite me speaking terribly on stage. I would still go up there and sing my best. Even if the performance wise wasn't there, I would still try anyways, just to conquer my fear kind of thing. And yeah, I always the key for me is that I don't fully give up. I just take a break and then try again. Because the more that I beat myself up for the same things, the more that nothing's really gonna happen. Maybe even take it at a different angle. If the same things that's not happening isn't gonna work, then I take it to a different method or approach.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's important. I think it's because I think that's something that every artist will, they may or may not admit to it, but they definitely go through that. They definitely go through stage fright. They definitely go through creative ruts, and everybody has. I like asking that question because everybody has a different answer to that. And it's fascinating because it's something to where, yeah, I think you're totally right. You can attack it from different angles. And some people say the best thing that you can do is to just take a deep breath and just jump right in. Like if you're feeling stage fright, you're about to go on stage and you're feeling, I don't know, just force yourself to go and do it anyways, and then you'll realize it's not that bad. It's not as bad
Yeah,
as your brain can be tricky. Your brain can be a real pain sometimes, and make things more difficult than they have to be for you.
yeah,
So sometimes I think you do have to just go for it and just jump right in, and you'll be happy that you did. And then the opposite, the kind of the flip side of that is that if you don't, you'll regret that you didn't, and you'll wish that you had.
yeah. And you always kind of wonder what would have happened if I didn't. Because at least when you try, you know what happened, and you know what can and cannot do, or maybe can improve on next time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, and when it comes to writing, I think that's creative rut as well. Like it's just, I've always said go do something else. If you're trying to, especially when it comes to writing for sync, like when if you get a brief and you're supposed to be writing something, and you just get in, and granted it isn't one of the, granted it isn't one of the like 24-hour notice ones, which but if you get one, it's like, we need it in like a week or two, but we need this mid-tempo pop song, and you're trying to write for it. it can get it can get frustrating to be in a rut. And I think the best thing you can do if that happens to you is just um set down your computer, set down your desired instrument, and go outside and go for a walk. Go walk your dog. Go take a shower. Go make dinner. Go to the gym. Go exercise. Um, Go listen to a music that is whatever the exact opposite of the music is that you are trying to write for. um, which sounds wacky, there's a reasoning behind the madness. Um, you're trying, basically you're trying too hard,
Yeah,
and the best ideas are gonna come naturally.
yeah, I agree. Cause like, I don't know if I remember this correctly, but didn't Nelly also, and Charlie too, they wrote a song about flipping the lights, like a light switch. Remember Nelly wrote that, Potato, she wrote the song Turn Off the Lights.
Oh yes, yes.
Based on that, she just, the inspiration just came from like switching the light switch, flipping the light switch, and then the same thing happened with Charlie too. He wrote something of a similar title, Light Switch. I could have sworn. And then yeah, it's just, you would be so surprised of what kind of inspiration it can bring, things can bring you, like simple things like that can bring you.
Oh yeah, no, that's very true. Like, and sometimes you need something very mundane, to write about, because then you just need to start making the snowball. You need to start gathering the snow into a ball and then start rolling it. You just need to have something started off, and then it can roll into whatever you actually need it to be.
Yeah, definitely. Even if you start with like one small concept and then you evolve it into like, even if you just write it down for now, like on a simple notepad or even on your phone, and just record the melody so you can save it for later, that for sure can grow into something so much bigger and special. And it's really cool because like you can start small and end up really big.
Yeah, and sometimes those are the best ones. I mean, inspiration can come from anywhere. Like the amount of times that artists have come up with some of their best ideas from, brushing their teeth or taking a shower, or folding laundry. And like I promise you, there are artists who have come up with their um, some of their top charting hits because they were folding a pair of pants, and the idea just hit them one day. Like it's wild, but that's the way it happens. That's the human brain is weird. Like and that's just, but you have to appeal to it. You have to appease to, however, the weirdness of how the human brain works if you want to get what you want out of it.
Yes, definitely. I think it's weird, like, it's not weird, but like it's kind of funny how, like, you know those memes where it's like the best inspiration comes at midnight,
Oh yeah.
or like at 2 a.m. Sometimes it just hits at random times, and you just got to take note of it because sometimes that 2 a.m. kind of song inspiration ends up being your hit song.
Yeah, that's why the invention of the mobile phone, the smartphone, is something that is often overlooked about that is the ability for you to just literally, uh, you can be anywhere, anytime, and you come up with a song idea because inspiration strikes randomly. You can just go into your phone and hum an idea or type a memo out, and it, it, you're done. You don't have to worry about being close to like in the old days, being close to like a voice recorder or like an 8-track or a notepad. You have a computer on you at all times.
Yeah, I used to do that actually. So whenever I had a song idea in high school, and because I used to write lyrics and then come up with a melody and then do the instrumentals, but now it's like the complete opposite. So I do the instrumental first. Um, but before, when I used to write like the lyrics and then the melody, I would use my phone to do voice recordings as a memo to save the melody idea and then work on it more when I get home. So it really comes in handy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so we're gonna get to some of your songs here pretty soon. But there's still a couple more questions I have for you. What skills do you feel are the most necessary in the music industry? Like if you had the opportunity to tell an aspiring artist, hey, just if I could tell you one thing, I only have time to tell you one piece of advice. What would it be?
Don't be afraid to be who you are. I know it sounds so
No, I love
cliche,
it.
but it's so true. Don't be afraid. Never be afraid to be who you are. Don't find validation from other people. Don't take in so much of what people are telling you, because you need to find your own truth. You need to find your own purpose, not what people's purpose of you, what they think you should do. Do what your heart tells you to do, your gut tells you. Follow your own path, and whatever people tell you, choose what you want to let sink in. Like, choose whatever helps you to from open-minded people. But the people who bring in too much worry, I get where they're coming from, but nothing comes from worrying a lot when you don't try the things that you wanted to do because you were so stuck in fear. So just don't let the fear stop you. Just be who you want to be. Just do what you wanted to do and never
No,
give
that
up.
that is no. I don't say that that's cliche. That is very true. I that's 110% true. And I think that's even something that people can get lost in. Like especially writing for sync. When you're writing for sync and you're listening to the reference tracks, um, you know, they want you to sound very similar to I don't know, Nelly or Usher or any name anybody, and you get so absorbed in trying to sound almost exactly like that person that you can lose track of who you actually are. um sure, like it's good to be able to get close to that. They want you to sound like Macy Gray. Okay, you can get close to that. For the purposes of the sync, because they can't afford to actually for the fee for the actual song. But it's very very easy to get lost. It's very 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 easy to lose your voice, and it's very very difficult to find it again if you do
I
lose it completely.
I think um it's also within the mindset too that, like, you will only lose it if you allow yourself to lose it. Because the thing is, like, you can still keep your original voice. You can still keep, like, your original um persona. That person that shines when you're on stage and off stage. You can still keep that identity and who you are as an artist, who you are as a person. But when you're writing into as for specific kind of requirements for sync, I would just treat it as something like a typical job, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to define who you are, um, because you're just doing it for the sake of, like, trying to match the meaning behind the specific scene or specific requirements. But it doesn't mean that you have to lose it completely, like your own songs and your own sound, because you can always do it separately on the side. Sometimes you just gotta find the time to do it.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, Anthony, did you have any questions for Alex before we go on to the next section of listening to some of the songs here?
No, no, not at all. This was your chance, Eric, for you to get to know her. Alex and I are very good virtual friends, and I'm a fan of her and her music. So this was the Eric get to know Alex session.
All right. All right. Well, yeah, I'm doing just that. Okay. Yeah, this is fantastic. I'm loving this conversation. I think I'm gonna throw you one last question, and it's just something that I like to ask our artists because it's something that really, they either know the answer to this immediately, or they are completely stumped and they don't even know how to respond. Um, if you weren't doing music, what would you see yourself doing?
Oh, I see what you're.
Yep.
um, I've thought about that a lot, and it's funny because, like, This is the question I ask myself every day before I have like this current job, which is like content creation. I would choose content creation. I would choose content creator because I also do photography and I do video editing and I have to do videography now, so I'm learning videography. So yeah, I would do something that still kind of requires music supervision if I'm not being the singer, but at least with content creation, you can still have a lot of fun with it and still choose your own kind of music that would go with the video or slideshow or whatever the content calls for. So that is what I would have done. I still would have done something creative because that's just my calling. I feel like I love creative work a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So like you would still be on the creative side. You wouldn't switch to something like like accounting or
I've tried that, not accounting, but like I've tried administration, assistant, and office support, and I didn't like it. um, I'd say the one that I least like the most is retail and hospitality, like servers. But I kind of grew from that experience because at least I knew what I couldn't handle and stand. And I wouldn't have gotten this job now, which is the content creation and working with you guys for some songs, if I didn't push myself to really go for what I wanted and figure out what I wanted to. So that's also what I meant earlier by like be just be who you are, like be honest with yourself kind of thing. Because when you're so influenced by other people, like a lot, you lose yourself in the process because you're so influenced by what other people are telling you. What about what you're telling yourself? Like, how do you feel about certain things? How do you feel about where you want to be? That's something that I think everybody's trying to figure out too.